Walter Russell speaks of what he calls the love principle, and he says that for love to work, there has to be a balance of giving and taking. So from a sustainability perspective, what the natives are saying is if you extract more from nature than she can regenerate, then you're inducing death.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is that's not quite enough for me, because the future that I fear the most is not one where humanity perishes because we've destroyed the planet. It's one where humanity persists despite having destroyed the planet. I just want to say, like, we have to be able to see others. This is the role of a coach. Okay, this is the true coach. I derived this archetype from my high school coach. He was an outstanding coach, like 17 years undefeated, cross country teams, And the reason that he was so effective was that he knew better than we did what we were capable of. He saw us as more capable than we saw ourselves. A story that we hold about another person is an invitation to step into that story. And I'm sure that you do this instinctually, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you refuse to buy into people's story of weakness or incapacity or limitation.
No question.
Yeah.
Like a good example is I get people coming to me all the time saying, I've got ADD or I've got ADHD or I've got a learning disability. The first thing I say is, please never say that around me again. Never say it to
Mm-hmm.
yourself again. And what you can say, what I will accept, is that you have a unique mind and a unique brain and a unique way of perceiving. And it's up to you to learn how to use your gifts. Because if you keep pulling that crutch out, you're going to make excuses for the rest of your life and you won't
Right.
become the person you came here to be. But
Yeah.
if you take your gifts and find out what door that key fits, magic's going to happen.
Yeah. Mr. Horner would not accept excuses. My coach. Like, if you tried it, you would regret it.
Well,
He would
let
he would
me,
invite you to hang up your fur-lined jock if you know said you weren't coming to practice that day. But the thing is, he also didn't hold us to a standard beyond. Like, he saw us as more than we saw ourselves, but it wasn't unrealistic either.
yeah,
It
he
was it
knew where the
was
growth edge is at.
exactly. And I guess if there's like one thing I would leave with, um, it would be to understand the power of our seeing of others and what
Mm-hmm.
we can call them into, which requires clearing the mirror image of those limitations in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you cannot see somebody as capable if you don't really believe in yourself as capable.
Absolutely.
And it's reciprocal. Then, like, how do you fix that? Well, partly it's because we, through the generosity of the universe, when that impatience and that disquiet with who we've been being gets strong, it becomes a magnetic call to the universe to provide the people that will see us as more than we have been. So it's kind of not an individual accomplishment. This process of enlightenment is a group activity. And so, to the extent that any of us have received that and have had a Coach Horner or a mentor in their lives who saw them as more than they had been being, I mean, to the extent that we've had that, we can be that for others. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to, like, affirm both the gratitude for having received that in our lives and the feeling of honor to be able to offer that to others, to offer our seeing of the real human being that
Mm.
refuses to believe all of the negative stories we're told about each other, even about, like, Bill Gates. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I stepped into a conversation with him even knowing all of the dark stuff, I would refuse to believe that that's really who he is. I would look for his divinity. And I don't want to pick
Mm-hmm.
on the guy, okay? I don't know. In person, I've never met him, okay? Maybe he's, but let's just say, like, the person that you know, demonize the most, like, can you step into that with the orientation of seeing the divine being there? Because if you don't have that orientation, then you won't look for it. And if you don't look for it, you won't see it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about pretending to see something that you don't actually see. It's an orientation to look for it.
Yes. There's
Yeah.
a saying that you've probably heard that it really highlights exactly what you're saying. And it goes like this: if a pickpocket sees a saint, he only sees his pocket. But when the saint sees the pickpocket, he sees God.
Hmm.
And I think part of what we're going through collectively is ultimately directing us back to the very deepest level of ourselves, which points to what is our ultimate belief about who we are, and what we're an expression of. And this is why Jung said of the Imago Dei archetype, which means image of deity. In Jungian psychology, that's the first archetype that emerges in the psyche, and all of them are extensions of that. Jung says something very powerful. It's impossible to tell whether your Imago Dei creates you or you create it.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, we're all getting a chance to right now to really ask ourselves, what is life? What is the purpose of life? Why are we here? Why am I here? What is the universe? What is the world? And those seem like very deep questions, but ultimately where you land on the scale of answering those questions for yourself and how comfortable you are with that answer ultimately has a huge impact on all the relationships that you have. Because you see, if I see God in everyone, then I see Bill Gates fulfilling a role. That's why I said sometimes the devil comes along and does magic, but it looks like
Hmm.
evil, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I have a saying called the pain teacher. When the pain teacher shows up, it's a good idea to pay attention and listen, because the pain teacher just keeps turning it up until you do
Right.
get it.
Hmm.
And so I really appreciate what you're saying. And I think it boils down to we're in a position where we all really need to ask ourselves, what is it about? Why am I here? And what is the most important thing to me? And I think most people would, without a lot of philosophical training, probably eventually come to the realization that the most important thing is love, and love does not exist without relationship. There has
Hmm.
to be an I thou. I define love as the flow of energy and information through empathic and compassionate connection to self or other. And ultimately, the only way God could experience love is to create diversity or individuality, because as one, there is no other. Therefore, by creating the story and populating it with the characters and creating the illusion that I'm not God, then I can find Charles and find a piece of me and find support or camaraderie or kinship or even the competition that grows me. But in that illusion of separation, there's now an agency for love. There's now an agency for self realization for both of us, for growth. And my dream is that we all come to realize that what's more important than are you vaccinated or not, or what political party do you vote for or not, or what are your views on this or that, is I'm a human, you're a human, and we not only need each other, but we need Mother Nature, because without her, none of us has the opportunity to have the experience of being human. And so I really hope that we come to the realization that the way we're living and what we're funding is ultimately destroying the infrastructure of the game board that allows the myth to be acted out, which is where God realizes what it is. And so, I mean, that's just my own interpretation, and it's my response to what I'm hearing you say, because I'm
Mhm.
taking your words in, and I'm pretending I'm your own child or your own student, and say, well, how do I handle what Charles is saying right now? And ultimately, that's where it takes me. One of the questions I had for you is, I cited Jeremy Lent's excellent book, The Web of Meaning, and he identified that native cultures over time recognize what they called the 4 R's of sustainability: relationship, responsibility, reciprocity, and redistribution. And when I read that, I thought, wow, that is really deep wisdom. And it's hard to argue against that. And I put that in there because I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that. And not just on those 4 R's, but on where you feel the level of importance of those 4 R's are today for all of us.
Relationship, responsibility, reciprocity, and redistribution.
Yes.
Yeah. So relationship. Um, Ubuntu is the word. I am because you are.
Mm.
If the rainforest dies, it's not only my conditional dependence on it that makes me suffer loss, it's that something in me dies too.
Yes.
That's relationship. Responsibility. In English, it has like these overtones of obligation and even guilt. But another meaning of it is the ability to respond,
Mm-hmm.
and even like the necessity to respond, the urge to respond.
Mm-hmm.
That comes from, I mean, really, it comes from gratitude
Yeah.
that
And
makes you
and
want to
love.
respond.
Love.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah,
our responsibility to care for our children. And if you don't care for yourself well enough to have responsibility, then
yeah,
how can you care for anyone else, children or otherwise? So I think, we all have to look carefully at how we're managing ourselves, because whatever we're doing ourselves, we're doing to the world.
yeah. And that's reciprocity. Turning that
Mm-hmm.
around, whatever we do to the world, we do to ourselves.
Amen. It's
So,
the echo effect.
yeah. And redistribution. I'm not sure what he really means by that. It could be,
It means that when you have more than you need, you share it with others that don't
right,
have what you have. In other words, if I've
right. I
got
get
a
it. Yeah. So that
stockpile
yeah,
of grain and it's just sitting there rotting in silos, I give it to the hungry people.
right. So it's robust networks of flow so that
Mm.
wealth doesn't stagnate in
Right.
in fetid pools. Yeah, it's sounds solid to me. Um, uh, we could ask, what's the next step toward those for our society? Sustainability isn't really, though, my orientation. I don't want to just sustain what we have. Like, if we could sustain our current society, and which is what a lot of the sustainability discourse is about, let's
Mhm.
find some clean energy fuel source to replace fossil fuels. Well, to me, what's a lot more important is what we're using the fuels for, not whether their use is sustainable. And
Yeah, from the
yeah,
native perspective, I will help share what it means to me from my studies of this. Sustainability means we need to keep the water clean, or we're going to kill everything that supports us. Um, we have to have responsibility for knowing what is sacred and what supports life. And if we don't respond to honor and respect and support that, there's ramifications. Reciprocity is redistribution, in the sense that um, the relationship is reciprocal. It's a give and take. Love is a give and take. Walter Russell speaks of what he calls the love principle, and he says that for love to work, there has to be a balance of giving and taking. So from a sustainability perspective, what the natives are saying is if you extract more from nature than she can regenerate, then you're inducing death.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that's not quite enough for me, because the future that I fear the most is not one where humanity perishes because we've destroyed the planet. It's one where humanity persists despite having destroyed the planet.